Welcome back to Fast Finder here on the Schwab Network. It's time for cash tags. For that, let's bring in our next guest. That's going to be Andy Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Thank you.
All right. So, Lululemon has been a roller coaster after last year and a half or so. It's made some over 50% gains from those lows that we saw at the beginning of August. It was $226. But we've seen some weakening sales. What kind of data do you guys have on Lululemon? Because it's still, now almost cut in half from the highs that we saw about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, it's been tough sledding. I think Lululemon is a mature company in a fairly mature segment. They're, still, I think, best of breed. LikeFolio data shows that among competitors, Lululemon is still very near the top in terms of growth. There's just questions of, how much growth is still left in the athleisure industry, especially as consumers are moving, away from that product category in some respects in terms of fashion trends and so on, back to denim and some of those other items. But, Lululemon is a great company. I think, overall, we're fairly bullish on it long term. We think this is a company that executes really well. They have the opportunity for strong international expansion, but they are threatened by some up and coming competitors that are, hungry and innovative, just like Lululemon was in the past. And so I think they need to reinvigorate that spirit within themselves. But I think it's too early to count Lululemon out in the long term. I think that athleisure is still growing fairly significantly. We're seeing good trends for this holiday season specifically, and specifically for Lululemon. So we think that there's at least near-term, mid-term upside to this from here. Maybe worth a slightly bullish bet with the risk well-defined, but we'll have to see how the company reports.
Andy, they lowered their guidance in the last earnings report. They kind of hit the stock, but very quietly, like I said this morning on MTL, the stock is rallied $120 off its lows. But are you seeing any loss of luster in Lululemon? There's small startups. You mentioned maturity. Sometimes that's a tough word for a highly valued stock. Are there any, the Nike Foot Locker news this week wasn't great, but Lululemon, I wouldn't really compare them to Nike. They're that highest priced brand. Is there any because China's not strong yet, Europe's not strong. That's where they're hoping a lot of their growth is. Is that some of the risk there, or is competition the risk?
Yeah, I definitely think I think it's both. I also think that the overall macro trend of people moving away from, especially women moving away from athleisure as their kind of everyday wear and getting a little bit more specific about when they want to wear it, limits the amount of athleisure that they need in their closet and the amount that they have to go, shopping and spend money on that. I think that's a significant headwind that is starting to come Lululemon's way. I will say that, from a tailwind perspective, though, especially in the United States, Lululemon is definitely still in the consumer sweet spot in terms of, basically being a luxury or at least high-end brand, and their demographic being the portion of the economy, the portion of the United States that can afford high-end brands and still wants to purchase those. And that segment of the economy is still very strong. So I think there's conflicting information on Lululemon. I think this is one where we're probably best off learning from what the company says and watching how they execute. But overall, I think you have to, at some point, say, look, this is a really good company that's still showing really strong growth and really favorable ratings with consumers despite pretty tough overall conditions.
Yeah, and you mentioned competition, and then you had it on your chart there. Vuori is especially, I think, on the men's side. I think that that growth for men for Lululemon is going to stagnate because Vuori, I think, is better quality, and I think it's really picked up steam there. But there's some other smaller ones also. aloe and stuff like that. But Andy, the way that I look at it, we looked at a chart of Walmart earlier in the show. And they're getting a lot of their business from the people making over $100,000 a year. Yeah. They're starting to trade down a little bit. Is that a concern for Lululemon, because it's still really expensive stuff, and there's alternatives out there, whether it's Athleta and some of the other brands that are a little bit cheaper, and maybe people are turning that way, and then throw in that going back to the office. You're not going to be wearing your leggings around anymore, and maybe we can get the government workers actually to go in the office and stop wearing Lululemon pants.
I'm going to take the under on that last one, but overall, I think you've laid out the case against Lululemon very well. There's increasing competition. There's the possibility that people want to trade down. There's a macro fashion headwind that they face. And I think, if I'm Lululemon right now, I'm going back to what were we, 10 years ago? What were we 15 years ago? What were we when we were initially founded, and going out to all of these yoga studios, making sure the top influencers had our products on? It seems like in some ways maybe we've outgrown our roots, and that can become a big problem. And so I think that's the challenge for Lululemon. I'm very interested to see how they address that going forward. But on the same token, this is an exceptionally well-run company that has navigated much more turbulent times than this very, very well. So we don't bet against Lululemon long term. We think that there's still some upside in the short term, but definitely the case you laid out against them is still very valid. I don't think that there's anyone that thinks Lululemon is a 4X or 5X from here over the next 5 to 10 years.
Andy, one last thing. And here's some of my small problem with Lululemon and the potential from a male consumer, an identity crisis. Nike, Greek goddess of victory. Under Armour implies some strength. What is a Lululemon? It seems like a cartoon doll. How can I wear that, Andy?
Yeah, Kevin, you can't. I'm just going to put that. You just don't. I think that there are better options for you. I think that Lululemon probably has lost the male market in general. But look, that was never their core.
Right.
And they strayed away from their core. And like I said, they've outgrown their roots a little bit. And that's when things start to get a little wobbly. And so I think that's where Lululemon is right now. And as investors, it's important for us to have the discipline and the patience to see that a company is steering the ship in the right direction before we give them the gas money to go try to execute on that vision. So it's a wait and see on Lululemon for all the reasons that you guys described.
Yeah, we've got a nice little pop over the last week on some data that's pretty positive for them going into holiday shopping. All right, great stuff as always, Andy. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio, breaking it down for us. Yeah, I mean, it brings up a good point, but it's up 51% from the